the elements ready to go to the table of the Lord. Before we do, I want to give you a little history lesson. Most of you know this. You'll probably remember it from your school days. A Spanish conquistador named Francisco Pizarro. Francisco Pizarro is mostly known by his conquest of the Inca Empire in Peru in South America. Pizarro and about 160 men entered into the Inca Empire in search of gold. Pizarro was driven in the name of Christ, by the way, for riches. He used the church, in my opinion, as cover, because priests went along on his journeys and they did try to convert people. And what most people don't remember or wasn't taught, that a lot of those conversions came by force, which is not true conversions. So about 160 men entered into the Inca Empire. The real reason, they were searching for riches, especially gold. Now there was a young Inca king, Atahualpa, that resisted. So Pizarro and the Spanish friars that were traveling with Pizarro told the Inca monarch that he had to renounce their gods, or else. Now when this king, Atahualpa, asked them upon what authority that they were making this demand, the friar handed him his Bible. So the king took the Bible, held the Bible next to his ear, claiming he was trying to listen to the pages. And supposedly he asked the friar, "Why doesn't this book say anything to me?" And then he threw it violently to the ground. And that's how the story goes. Well, that's the only excuse the Spanish conquistador needed to attack and massacre the Incan people that were unarmed and arrested the king, King Atahualpa. A very small army of conquistadors compared to the thousands of people that were part of the Inca Empire. "62 horsemen and 102 infantry were able to attack and succeed eventually the Inca Empire, which is in its totality consists of about 5 million people. Now I understand they had the latest technology at the time in weapons, guns, the mechanical crossbows and the sword, and even horses. And all those things terrified the natives. And that's how they were able to get the victory. Now, while the king was arrested, and while he was arrested, he started to understand the real reason why the Spanish were doing what they were doing is because they wanted gold, they wanted treasure. So he came up with a plan for his release. And he told Pizarro, he promised Pizarro that he would give, in exchange for his release, enough gold and silver vessels to fill 3 large rooms. Now, the Spaniards' first reaction thought, that's impossible. But the gold-hungry Pizarro agreed to those terms. So the king, Atahualpa, decreed that his realm be ransacked to fill an 18 by 22 feet room of gold, not just covering the floor. This gold would be stacked at a height of little more than 8 feet high. And that was not just all that was promised. There would also be 2 equal-sized rooms that would be filled with silver. And by 1533 AD, more than 24 tons of treasure had been collected. What does that have to do with the temple of the Lord? I'm getting to that. Now that treasure, if you put an estimation of what its value would be today, would be somewhere around $267 million in today's values. So the king honored his promise, but the Spaniards did not honor their promise. They kept the king, the Inca king, an additional year imprisoned for the purpose of controlling the Inca Empire. But they eventually killed him. So you have to stop and think about everything that I just said. I just gave you a very brief history of what happened. How sad. Probably the largest ransom ever paid for a man's freedom was in vain. From an earthly point of view, that's pretty sad. $267 million couldn't buy your freedom. Let me tell you something that's even sadder. There are billions of people who have had a king's ransom paid for their freedom, and they choose to remain in prison, in bondage. Now we know the ones that have been set free what that feels like. Jesus is still there, waiting to free billions of people from the prison of sin. That's what his death at Calvary provided. That's what his precious blood provided. John 8:36 says that Jesus made us free, and you shall be free indeed. In fact, I have it in front of me. It reads, if the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. He paid the king's ransom for our very life. We go to the table of the Lord to celebrate many things about Jesus. I just want us to go to the table of the Lord tonight and thank Him. Provided His life as a king's ransom for my freedom, for your freedom. We're no longer in the prison of sin. We have been set free. Paul clearly says in Galatians 5, stand fast therefore in the liberty wherewith Christ has made us free. Praise Jesus. He has set us free. The prison gates were smashed open, and we walked out as free men. All because what Jesus did. The body broken, the blood spilled, paid the king's ransom price. And it was far more valuable. In fact, there's nothing that compared to it. Definitely not $267 million. He didn't have to do it. He willingly did it. He kept His promise. God kept His promise and sent His only begotten Son to set us free. So as we go to the table today or tonight to remember Jesus, let's remember Him as the one, that only one, that could have set us free, because only He had the right price, the right ransom price, to provide that type of freedom. Therefore, the Son has truly made us free, and we are free indeed. Thank you, Jesus. Play the song.